While passing through the phase of understanding, the road to forgiveness becomes broader. It's not only that you get to see where some behaviors and reactions come from, it's not only that you begin to understand yourself and your reactions to others, it's also that you become more focused on different aspects of your life. You become more aware of the fact that most often our reactions, especially when we get to emotional reactions, are triggered just a little bit, but by others and their behaviors and their words, and a lot more by our own history, our own memories. So it's quite true to say that a lot of the things that we need to forget and to forgive are our own memories of what happened and our own reactions to our past. For example, if my life partner tells me that I've not dressed properly today, I may not react at all if there's not a real issue for me. But if I remember all the other occasions where my parents told me that I'm an improper child, or maybe some traumatic events regarding my friends and my colleagues at school who bullied me, I may overreact to my partner's idea, and it will take a while to realize that my reaction has nothing to do with him and everything to do with me and my past. While learning to understand, we get through these phases where we see connections and we see how life stories come together and we see causality. And that is a huge step forward. But sometimes it's not enough. Because forgiving and understanding what that means for me needs to be contextualized. We need to detach ourselves a little bit and see the broader picture. This is where I get to see that I'm not only the victim of what happened, that an idea, a situation, a person, something that hurt me is not the only thing valuable in my life. That what I've lost is not everything I've owned or everything I was. When I begin to integrate that fact of life into the picture of my identity and my history and my life story, that's when positive connections begin to form. Because forgiving needs an infusion of positive motivation, of positive affection. It needs to have positive fuel in order to be able to be carried on. No matter how much we try to understand, no matter how much we see that other people may be the result of their own life stories and maybe the result of their own hurt, and that they didn't mean to hurt us, or maybe they didn't have any other option at the time, that fact in itself, that understanding in itself is not enough. So at some point, forgiveness needs to become part of the picture. Not the whole picture, not the main focus, but part of it. When I understand that I have a lot of other resources, that I have a lot of other aspects of that particular relationship that I still value, when I understand that there's more to me and more to life and more to everything that happened, that's when I begin to heal. Because all those other parts become the context, become the huge field where forgiveness shrinks to something small. And that shrinking is very similar to what happens to an open wound. If you get something that hurts you, hurts your skin on a large portion, usually that open wound is so important, so painful, so much in the focus of your attention that your entire body seems to be shrunk to that part. But when you begin to heal, you begin to sense and to become aware of the other parts of your body. And little by little, that wound begins to shrink, to become less important, to be covered, and to heal. And that's what happens to forgiveness. Focusing on the positive aspects of your life and on the positive aspects of the relationship that has been damaged may be a very important and a very large, open-minded experience that falls into the category of forgiveness. And it's one step forward that reaches different aspects, different psychological processes involved in forgiveness. Because forgiving, even though defined as a change of attitude, envelops all dimensions of our psychological life. Forgiveness is about thoughts and cognitive processes, and that's what understanding is about. Forgiveness is a lot about emotion, especially about negative emotion, and that sometimes covers up everything else. This is why, on the road to forgiveness, the beginning cannot happen while we're totally submerged in that first wave of pain and negative emotion. You simply cannot forgive while you're struggling to breathe through all that emotion that's drowning you. Not to mention the fact that while you're profoundly activated on negative emotions, the cortex is asleep. So all those cognitive processes that you need in order to understand and to move forward are all on pause. So what you need is to begin forgiving when that first wave has passed a little bit. That's why you cannot rush forgiveness. On the other hand, the negative emotions still travel with us on this road. So while working on the way we think about ourselves and the others and our relationships, it's important to remember that there comes a moment when we need to deal with emotions. And that moment on the road to forgiveness means that we need to understand how to express ourselves and our emotions, how to become assertive in letting our most inner, most intimate, most profound emotions seen, and then how to manage all that. Emotions come naturally, so you cannot prevent or stop feeling hurt when somebody told you something that is painful or is straightforward mean to you. What you can do is learn how to manage that. Learn how to go through the emotion, how to express it, and then how to think about it in a way that will help you redefine the situation and then redefine how you feel about it. Seeing the broader picture helps you gather and activate the positive emotion about everything else that's valuable, treasured, important in your life. And on that step to forgiveness, there's a learning factor that is totally related to the way you connect thoughts and emotions. Because in our lives, primary emotions, the ones that are basic, are not the only ones. Forgiveness is not only about anger and rage and fear and sadness. Forgiveness is also about dealing with envy and with jealousy and with despair. Forgiveness is also about complex emotions that connect to our thoughts and to the way we see others and to the way we interpret life. And here is a little stop that we need to make on the road to forgiveness. It's about the tendency to make hostile attributions. For some of us, it comes more naturally. But it's also a learned pattern of thought. When we've been hurt repeatedly, we tend to make those attributions more often, more profound, and more extensively. So in learning to forgive, we need to acquire some abilities that help us take a break, breathe through the anger and through all those negative emotions, and then think about the way we tend to attribute to others hostile intent. Because while it's true that some people sometimes mean to harm us, it's also true that most often, most people do not. They just react the way we do. They just react to themselves more than they react to us. And most often the things that hurt us have to do with our life stories more than they have to do with them. Also, other people think about us less than we perceive them to do so. There's this famous quote of Winston Churchill saying that at 20 years old, we usually tend to be preoccupied about what people think about us. Around 40 years old, we begin to think we don't really care what people think about us. Around 60, we realize that people never really thought about us that much. While joking about it, the reality is that our hostile attribution tendencies harm us more than they harm others. While trying to understand, while trying to gather positive emotion in order to be able to cope with all the pain of forgiving, learning to avoid hostile attributions may prove to be a small ability, but a key one. So take this break and practice, and follow our next video where we talk about the end of the road.